You ever wonder what it feels like to be treated like a threat just because of how you were born? To have your heartbeat sound guilty before you even speak? To be seen, not for who you are, but for what they fear you might be? That's the kind of morning Eli Thompson woke up to. He didn't know that day would change his life, and the lives of everyone who heard his story. It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind of morning that looked too peaceful to hold any trouble. Eli was driving through a quiet suburb. Clean streets, white fences, golden sunlight on every corner. He was on his way to an award ceremony, the state's Justice and Reform event. They were about to honor him for his work in defending the falsely accused. He wore a navy blue suit, freshly ironed. The same tie his late father gave him years ago. Brown silk, a little faded at the edges. On the passenger seat lay a letter from the governor, thanking him for his courage. Eli hummed to an old song from his childhood. It was one of those soft soul tracks his dad used to play after long days. A song about peace and how love was stronger than hate. He smiled to himself. His father would have been proud. A man who once stood on the wrong side of the law, now walking into a room full of lawmakers, not as a suspect, but as a symbol of justice. But life sometimes doesn't care about your resume. It only sees your reflection. Blue and red lights flashed in Eli's rearview mirror. He frowned, puzzled. He checked his speed, normal. His seatbelt, fastened, everything fine. He slowed down, pulled over gently. A voice came through the patrol car's loudspeaker. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." Eli blinked. Step out? He turned off the engine, rolled down his window. Two officers approached, one tall and broad, face hard as concrete. The other younger, eyes uncertain, maybe in his late 20s. The older one spoke first. "License and registration." Eli handed them over calmly. "Of course, officer. May I ask what's wrong?" The officer ignored the question. "Where are you headed?" Eli smiled lightly. "Downtown, State Hall." "For what?" "Award ceremony." The officer raised an eyebrow, scanning him from head to toe. "Uh-huh, what kind of award?" Eli hesitated. That tone, that look. He'd seen it before. Still, he kept his voice steady. "For legal work. I'm an attorney." The officer smirked. "Sure you are." The younger officer glanced at his partner. "Jim, his ID checks out." But Jim wasn't listening. "Pop the trunk," he ordered. "Sir, I don't consent to unnecessary searches," Eli replied. Jim's face tightened. "You giving me attitude?" Eli's heart pounded. He wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of being tested for patients that had already paid too much. Within minutes, backup arrived. What started as a simple stop turned into chaos. They asked him to step out. He obeyed, hands visible, voice calm. But calm doesn't always matter when color writes the script. Jim grabbed his arm roughly. Eli winced. "Officer, there's no need for—" Before he could finish, he was pushed against the hood, his cheek pressed cold against the metal. "I've studied law to protect people from this," he thought, "but right now all my degrees are invisible." They handcuffed him. His phone rang, his assistant calling, probably asking where he was. Jim snatched it and tossed it into the patrol car. As they drove off, Eli looked out the window. The same streets that looked peaceful moments ago now felt like a cage. The police station smelled like stale coffee and old paper. Eli was led into a small interrogation room. White walls, one chair, one table. Jim tossed his wallet onto the desk. "Let's see if this attorney thing is real." Eli said nothing. He'd learned long ago that silence can sometimes speak louder than anger. The younger officer, Ray, looked uneasy. He kept glancing between Eli and his partner. He didn't like what he saw, but he didn't want to lose his badge either. Hours passed. No food, no call, no explanation. Eli sat there, eyes on the clock. He thought about his father again, a man who once told him, "Don't fight hate with hate, son." Fight it with proof. The memory calmed him. His father, Charles Thompson, had been a police officer too. A good one. Until one night, he was beaten by his own colleagues for defending a black teen they were roughing up. He survived. But his faith in justice didn't. That was the night Eli promised to change things. To become a lawyer, not for fame, but to give fairness a face again. But now, sitting in that cold room, handcuffed and humiliated, he wondered if anything had truly changed. Outside the room, Ray checked Eli's file on the system. The name popped up. Eli Thompson, civil rights attorney, keynote speaker. State Hall today. 11 a.m. Ray's eyes widened. His stomach dropped. He walked quickly to his partner. Jim, this guy's legit. Look, Jim cut him off. I don't care who he is. He was being uncooperative. Ray frowned. He wasn't. You overstepped. Jim glared at him. Watch your mouth, rookie. Ray hesitated, then lowered his voice. This could blow up in our faces. The media, the governor. Jim slammed his fist on the desk. Enough. Ray flinched, but something shifted inside him. He'd always told himself he'd joined the force to do good, to protect, to be fair. And right now, he wasn't doing any of that. He looked through the one-way glass. Eli was sitting quietly, hands folded, eyes calm but heavy. Ray whispered under his breath, "He doesn't deserve this." Meanwhile, outside the station, Eli's absence hadn't gone unnoticed. He was supposed to be on stage by noon. By 12:30, the governor's aides started calling. By 1 p.m., news outlets began tweeting, "Where is Eli Thompson?" A reporter posted a photo of his car still parked by the roadside. Hashtag started trending. Find Ella Thompson. Justice for Eli. The phone at the precinct rang nonstop. The chief finally picked up. What the hell is going on in my department? Within minutes, he stormed in, demanding answers. When he saw Eli in handcuffs, his face turned pale. He ordered his release immediately. Do you have any idea who this man is? He barked at Jim. Jim stuttered. Sir, he was being... Save it, the chief snapped. Then he turned to Eli. Mr. Thompson, I can't express how sorry we are. Eli stood up slowly, wrists sore, voice steady. Your apology won't change what your badge just did, sir. But maybe it can stop the next one. He picked up his jacket, adjusted his tie, and walked out. Hours later, the hall was packed. Cameras flashed, murmurs filled the air. Everyone turned as Eli walked in, a bruise on his cheek, eyes tired but sharp. The host rushed over, whispering, Are you okay? We were so worried. Eli nodded gently. Let's start. He climbed the stage. The hall fell silent. He looked out at the sea of faces. Some curious, some guilty, some just afraid to breathe. He took a deep breath, then began. Today, I was supposed to talk about justice. But justice met me in a different form this morning. Not in a courtroom, not on a podium, but on the side of a quiet road. I was handcuffed for the crime of being brown in the wrong place. I was told to prove who I was, as if my skin erased my name. And when I looked into the eyes of the man arresting me, I didn't see evil. I saw fear, the kind of fear that turns difference into danger. The room was silent, and the kind of silence that listens. You see, justice isn't blind. She's just been told to close her eyes when the skin isn't white enough. But today, I want to say this. I forgive, but I will not forget, because forgetting keeps us quiet, and silence feeds the system that hurt me. He paused. His voice softened. Justice isn't just laws, it's humanity. It's how we treat the people who have no power to fight back. It's choosing truth over comfort. Then he leaned closer to the mic. And to those who wear the badge, your badge is not your power. Your power is in your choice to protect what's right, not what's easy. The audience erupted in applause. Long, heavy, emotional applause. But Eli wasn't done. He looked straight into one of the cameras. To every man and woman who has ever been stopped, searched, silenced, or shamed, your worth isn't up for debate. You are seen. And the world is finally listening. He stepped back from the mic, bowed slightly, and walked off stage. That night, the video of his speech went viral. News anchors called it a defining moment in the fight for equality. Protests began, not out of rage, but out of resolve. People demanded reform, demanded truth. Jim, the officer, was suspended pending investigation, but what no one saw coming was what happened weeks later. Ray, the young officer, walked into Eli's office, nervous but determined. He held a small envelope in his hand. Eli looked up, surprised. "Officer Ray." Ray nodded. "Not an officer anymore, sir. I resigned." He placed the envelope on Eli's desk. "Inside's my statement. I told them everything, what really happened." Eli stared at him quietly, then asked, "Why now?" Ray's voice cracked. "Because silence made me part of it, and I can't live with that anymore." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Eli extended his hand. "Thank you. Justice doesn't start in courtrooms, it starts here." He pointed at Ray's chest. "In the heart that finally sees." Ray nodded, tears welling up. "Can I volunteer in your community program?" Eli smiled softly. "I'd be honored." Weeks later, Eli visited his father's grave. He placed the old brown tie over the tombstone. "You were right, Dad," he whispered. "Fighting hate with proof hurts sometimes, but it heals deeper." He stood there for a while, eyes on the horizon. The sun was setting, gold bleeding into purple. He spoke again, this time like a man talking to every soul who's ever felt small because of their color, their accent, their skin. "To anyone listening," he said quietly, "don't let them tell your story for you. Speak. Stand. Even when your voice shakes. Because truth, no matter how long it hides, always finds a witness." He turned, walking away slowly, the wind tugging at his coat. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears scars. They say time heals all wounds. Maybe it does. But sometimes time just teaches us how to fight better. Not with fists, but with truth. Eli Thompson didn't just win an award that day. He started a movement, one that reminded the world that dignity has no color, that silence is no longer safety, and that justice is love armed with truth. And remember, sometimes the loudest change starts with the quietest man. If this story moved you, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button, share it with someone who still believes in justice, and subscribe to the Story Veranda. Because here, we tell stories that remind the world. Empathy still wins.